couple of weeks ago, but it's better later than never. How many people heard about React Router? Oh, good. So we don't have to do a presentation. Perfect. Anyhow, what we will do is we will try to build a little application that is using React Router, how it works, and we will do it pretty fast because we don't have too much time left. And as soon as we see that React Router works, we will jump into second part of presentation, which is a little bit more exciting to me at least. And it would be about code splitting, about delivering client bundles in different ways with different purposes, and it should be fun. So that said, I will continue introduction. So my name is Val. My last name is not pronounceable and not spellable, so don't try it at home, but G will do. And I work for Concur, which is a part of SAP company. So SAP is one of the oldest and probably one of the biggest whales in the industry. And as you can see, we are advanced enough to use React and all this interesting stuff. And here is my picture as a king. So I will be king of your presentation today. And I'll try to be. And that said, we skip this slide, and that is what we're going to build. We're going to build a life planner. It's a little ambitious for 50 minutes, but building to-dos is boring. And by the way, on the previous slide, I searched GitHub for to-do repositories, and I found 75,000. So we're definitely not going to build to-do today. So let's start looking at the code. And we are not going to start from scratch because it is a lot of typing that you guys don't want to see. But we are not going to use boilerplate of any kind. So we see where it is all and how those pieces are connecting to each other. So let's switch to the code. Can everybody see the code okay? Oh, yeah, cool. So what I have, and by the way, I didn't mention that all of it can be found in one of very few repositories I have in GitHub. And repository is listed here. So it's Val G, React MPLS, dash React Router, dash talk. But let's continue. So as I said, it is not like very beginning, we already have some files here around. So we have a bunch of components. And if you remember wireframe, we want to have like a dashboard. We want to see what books do I want to read, what songs do I want to listen, what places do I want to visit. And for each, we have a simple, very primitive components, like, for example, for songs, nothing special. It's no more than 30 lines in each, so we don't want to type it all. But the first component, what we want to look is main component of this application, Life Planner. It doesn't have anything other than nice header with a red color, exactly how we have it in wireframe. Even wireframe should be black and white, but hell, why not? So we have a component. We have a little file for Express server, also pretty short, where we have a couple of static routes defined, and we just have an application listener. Straightforward, nothing special. APIs, we have a data folder. And I was looking for data sets for this presentation. For places, I found pretty neat JSON, which is a list of pubs and bars in Great Britain. Perfect for Life Planner places to visit, I think. For songs, we will be using Bob Dylan songs, and for books, we will be, of course, using Wikipedia article about Russian literature. But we will make it fun. We will make it fun in the end. So right now, we are at the stage where, and Oh yeah, and package JSON I forgot, of course. So we don't want to look at our npm installs, everything is pre-install, and we just have a listed in dev dependencies and dependencies. I hope everybody understands what the difference between dependencies and dev dependencies are, so we can just skip this part. Good. And we have a script session. And in script session, it is very simple. We are not doing any crazy stuff of as hot loading. We are not doing any crazy stuff of as React Dev Server. We just have a two simple commands. We have a build, which executes Babel that transpiles from ES6 to ES5. And we have a start where we are using nodemon to re-kick our transpiled lib server.index.js. You might ask, why do I transpile a server-side code? Which is a valid question, but I like my imports, and I don't like my Babel having to reside on the server. That's the reason. Clear and simple. So if we start this guy, we will see that everything is getting transpiled, and after that we are listening on the port. I don't know why everybody is listening on the port 3000. That's a mystery to me. And so because we have a bunch of static routes defined in our Express code and a bunch of API, we see that it works. But of course, our life planner doesn't do anything, even we managed to write a component for it. So our first task would be how to present life planner component onto the page. How do we deliver this code into the page? And it might be not a science fiction for most of you, but as the flow of our talk, I want to do it. And I might do it a little bit controversial way, so be with me here. First thing what we need to deliver this is some kind of HTML that is coming from the server to the browser, right? And the way how we can deliver HTML is we can create a static file, index.html, put it under static route, and be done with it. But it's not fun. And the reason it's not fun, we will see again throughout our conversation. So instead of doing it with a static file, we will be using a 6 template. So we will create a function that returns our HTML markup as a string. So, and it will be pretty. So we will create a file called page.js. And don't worry, you won't be able, or you will not suffer watching me type. My Atom will type for me most of the presentation. So what we want to do here in page.js, we want to create a function, as I said, that returns HTML markup or markup. Yay, start typing. So we're going to use CSS from Bootstrap just to make those pages a little bit more pretty, but other than this, it is nothing. Why this semicolon is here? Nothing else other than standard string template for now, not even arguments. Good. Now we have to serve this to the client. So we go to our Express code, and what we do, we have to import it because, as I said, I like my imports. So we import, and because we are exporting default, we can import any way we want. So we call it render full page. And what we want to do is create express route to serve this. And how we do it? We do it pretty easy. We create the route. If it is not API and data, it should just resend result of our function. Clear? Let's see what's happening. Okay, we have our HTML on the server, but we still don't have our life planner. And the reason why we don't have our life planner is that nothing is delivering this code as part of this request. So what we want to do next is we want to write a code, but you see we have a placeholder where we can start rendering React components. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna back to the code, and we wanna create a new file, and we call it app.js. And in this app.js, what we will do, we will of course import React, and remember that all our NPM packages are installed. We will import Live Planner, and we will render Live Planner to the root element on the DOM that we already have. Good. But if we hit this page, it will not work. And the reason why it is not working is because browser doesn't know anything about this code what we just created. So to make browser aware of this code, we have to bundle it. And for this, we're going to use a Webpack, right? Because we can use some other tools, but we will use a Webpack. So for this, we will write a very simple, very simple primitive configuration file for Webpack. But first we will create it. And we will create it with an interesting name. Anybody knows why Babel.js might be used here? Very useful to use in Webpack name. Yes, we can write the ES6 directly, and we don't have to transpile it. Yeah, and I have my imports, and that is what I'm going to do very first. So I'm going to do import Webpack. And we define our entry, and our entry is pointed to the file where we are rendering our component. And when we define our output, which describes how bundles should be. Nothing fancy again, very primitive stuff. And the last thing what we need to do is we need to add a Webpack, or we call it pack command, into our scripts, right? So let's. And we will also change our pre-start command. By the way, everybody understand what pre-start is and why, how this chain work. If you are executing start, first everything with a PRI or PRE, is it I or EP, whatever. But this is getting executed if you're executing, so we will remove this pre-start. So now when we are starting our node-mon, first thing what it is doing, it is executing build with a watch in the background and pack with a watch in the background. So this chain helps us to not to do a restart and not to do manual commands. Okay, so and we also want to make sure that we are watching dist, just for convenience. So now if we run, we should see bundle created. Yes, we do. So all our code from app.js and all the dependencies are wrapped into the bundle, which is, but we will fight it. So, and the very next step, what we want to do is we want to deliver this bundle to the client. So we want to do, and we want to stick it right in the end of body, right? So now, so we have a script included, but we forgot something. What could we forget? We forgot that if you look how script is fetched, we don't have a static route for it. So let's go back and create a static route in our index.js. We will just say, what is it? Yeah, because we store it in the dist, and we are trying to fetch it from the dist, so we need a static route. So we save our 3-line script is regenerating everything that needs to be regenerated. We go back here. We have our component delivered. We have a bundle created. So that is very first step before we start looking at the React router. And even before we start looking for the React router, we might ask ourselves, can we build it without React router? So what React router is doing and what it is for. So why don't we try to build it like we just learn something from this world, but we don't know that React router exists. For doing that, we have a live planner. And first thing, if we remember our wireframe, we need a bunch of links. So let's put all the links here. Okay, so now we can save it. Transpile, new bundle, listening. Pretty cool. Almost like hot loader, but easier. We have our navigation, but it doesn't do anything, right? Because whatever you click, it is not loading all our components. Even we have our components already in our source code. So let's see how we can load our components. Assuming somehow magically we have a URL here, let's say, or route. But basically it's not a route, it's a URL. So if we have it in the state of this component, we can do a conditional rendering. So we can say HR, and after that can do a conditional rendering for our components based on our URL. And of course, we need our imports for all of our components. So far, so good? Okay, still wouldn't cut it. And why it wouldn't cut it? Because we are assuming our route is in the state. And if we now fetch nothing happening, because we don't know what the route is and where it is coming from, right? Can you still hear me? Because, okay, good. So in assuming we know something about components and assuming we know something about JavaScript and how it works on the client, we can get to the value of the current route. And the way how we can get to it is we can, first we will say that, what is it, get initial state of component should return, should put a, or return as a route that it will read from Windows location, right? And because route is changing or URL is changing when you click in links, because we are using hashes, we need some kind of listener. So in component did mount, we will add a listener. And of course, we won't kill it because we don't have time. So we should component did unmount. We should remove this listener to be nice to the browser, but we are not going to do it. So, and we got ourselves an error. And of course, the error we got because I did this inside of my render function, which is not nice to the render function. So now it works without an error. We go back to the browser. So we got ourselves a home page. We got ourselves first 100 bars in Great Britain to visit. We got ourselves an article about Russian literature. We got ourselves Bob Dylan songs. And of course, we got ourselves an about, which is mandatory for every application, if you ask me, or maybe not. So basically, what we just did covers a basis of routing, right? But let's think about why it is a bad idea to do it the way we did it. First of all, the bad idea is that now our life planner component is not just pure presentational component. It is in charge of handling routes, handling URL changes, handling stuff that it shouldn't be handling because it is a component. It's dropped just to present something on the screen and be done with it. Secondary, what if we need to handle routes with the parameters? Now we have to write more code here with artificial listeners, with some not interesting stuff. And finally, what if we want to do isomorphic code? None of this will work isomorphically, right? So, don't like it? Let's remove all of this. So we just prove that we can do it. And by the way, this component has no business to know anything about child components. And this component, in fact, you know what, because we are not using any life cycle, we can just convert it to stateless functional component, right? So we do export default, and again, we use a nice ES6 syntax, so we don't need this stuff anymore. We keep our links for now. We keep our HR for now. We don't need this. Okay, maybe too much, but look how pretty and stateless and functional this component is right now. So, to handle the routing in the application, we are living in component world, right? Everything in our world is component. This is component, this is component. So routing or handling how application flow goes should probably be a component also. And that is what React Router is. It allows you define our rules for our routes in React component. So let's do it. As we removed everything from here, we probably need some special place where we will handle all this. So let's create a file and let's call it routes. And what we want to do here is we again want to import React, and we want to import and assuming that React Router is installed, we want to import only one component. Actually, we want to import all the components we need here. So we go ahead and import all the components what we have in our application. And what we want to do is we want to export. Yes, we do want to export, and we want to export nothing else other collection of the routes. So first route should be root route /. What should be happening when you are going to /? You should see a life planner, but not only. Okay, and let's make it happen. So we will go, and that is how we define a route. And you probably know all of this, so I just don't have to spend too much time on this. But what I do is I'll do a bunch of nested routes. And bunch of nested routes to each of the component. Right? And now let's go to our life planner. Where is our life planner? And let's just remove all these hashes because we don't like them. We don't like to do anything with hashes. And let's see what's going to happen. But before we do it, let's go back to routes and let's see what's happening here. So when we go to / or /home, let's look at the /home. When we go to /home, first component that is rendered is a life planner. but what's happening is that when this component is rendered, it is passing children in properties, and children of this component will be a home component because our route will be /home. So to render a child component, we make it very easy. We assume that our children are coming to us in properties, right? And destructuring, everybody is okay with destructuring, right? Cool. And we render it. So we go to our application, and oh god, we hit our life planner. We go to home. Home is not showing. Why home is not showing? Huh? Oh, was it? Where did you see it? In here? Ah, in routes. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go back to routes. Yeah. No, that should be fine. Okay, but let's fix it. Let's be nice and let's fix it. Thanks. Here is why it doesn't work. We created this route collection, but we don't do anything with it, right? We still, if we go to our application, we still rendering Life Planner here. And Life Planner is now pure presentational component that doesn't do anything. So instead of Life Planner, what we will do is we want to import router and browser history, import routes. And in here, we will render our router component, which is a component. And now something should work, right? We went to places, we still see the place. We went to home, we don't see anything. Okay, we will figure it out. Go to books, we go to songs. But if we look at the network, and if we look at all files, we will see that it is not SPA anymore. It is not single page application anymore, because every URL change ends up being a server hit. We don't want it. And the reason why it is happening is because our Life Planner is still using ATAGs. In React router world, if you want to use client-handled links, you want to use a link component instead of a. So what you do is you import link from React router, and okay, so let's try to change it. So that should do. Or not. Oh, I don't want to change it in every single file. Okay. I forgot command to change it in one file, so we will do it like that. So instead of a href, we will do link to. And instead of closing tag, and I don't know why Atom is not doing it for me manually or automatically, but we won't complain about it. now. And let's make it to home, because in our routes file, we did it to home. Okay. And as a result of it, we got a client-side routing working and rendering components. Yes?
I said a really good question. Like, so it looks like the router's configuration is basically, you know, it's JSX, but it's like XML. Like, you do a JSON or something? Do you configure it, or do you basically do XML?
No, you can create this configuration as a simple JSON object.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. We don't want to do it now, but you can.
Okay.
Now, we only have half an hour left. So I will stop messing up with React Router, but we can do all sorts of things there, believe me. We can make sure that our current link is active. We can do, actually, yeah, that is not nice. So let's do something about it. You see, when we are going to our application, we see a menu, but nothing is happening. And ideally, we should see a dashboard page. So for this, just to prove that it is just not only a simple set of routes, we can do something more useful in React Router. So let's go to our routes, and let's import index route. And let's also import index redirect. So what we can do here is, instead of defining a path to home, we can say that, hey, you know what? We want to index route on our application. So if user goes to /home, he can go to home component. And let's see what's happening. So we go to application and we see a dashboard because we define it as an index route. We can do it multiple different ways. Instead of index route, we can just go back and get our home route back, and we can do index redirect. And the difference would be that when we go to our homepage, we automatically redirect to /home. Another interesting subject, let's spend another 2 minutes on this. If we go to some weird route, the warning in the console, but user is not looking at the console, thanks God. So we have to deal with fallback routes. And the way how React Router handles it, it does, let me close this for now. It handles a route match from up to bottom. So very last route we can define as everything else. And we can define a component in line here. And because it is a stateless functional component. So it's just a function that returns it. Right, so now if you go to our unknown route, we will see page not found. If you go back to books to read, we are in normal route. Enough of React Router. Last thing I want to say, it has perfect documentation. It has tons of tutorials. It has an API documentation like very few other packages have. So if you are into it, go read it and you will know everything. And another things to say that I should be saying in the very beginning, all of it was about React Router 3. When you're doing npm install React Router, you're getting version 3. Right now, version 4 is somewhere. I'm not a big believer of it because, am I dying? To me, it's all about simplicity. And when I looked at what's going on version 4 of React Router, I was scared and I didn't understand what they were trying to solve. But I would be very interested to see a talk here or maybe in some other place about the difference between React Router 3 and React Router 4. And maybe I'll do this talk in a couple of months when React Router matures and I will have a time to look at it. We'll see. But so if you tomorrow, if you open the documentation and you will see completely different things, just make sure you're reading documentation about React Router 3, not about React Router 4. So let's switch to more exciting to me topic, which is code splitting and how we can use it. So if we look at our application and if you look, it is delivering a single bundle of JavaScript. So let's go back to our presentation. And I just got iPad Pro recently, so I was trying a pencil. That's why you probably see a lot of handwriting that you couldn't read here. But the first problem what we will try to solve is that what if part of our application is big? Like, let's say in places you are implementing entire travel management system. And user, when he opens application, he is not necessarily goes to places, right? So can we load a chunk of code that is responsible for handling places, separate at the moment when user actually click places? And that is one big split of the rock is. And for these exercises to be a little bit more excited, let's make places really big. Because right now, our places code is quite small. It is only 27 lines, just did mount, fetch, etc. And how can we make a code big in 5 minutes? We can start typing like crazy, and maybe we will type a couple of megabytes of code. But we will do it differently. We know that we have this 6 megabyte JSON with all the places, all the bars in Great Britain. So let's just import it here. And look, as soon as I save it, yeah, my bundle is 7 megabytes. So it's anti-pattern. Don't do it at home. But we just do it especially for the purpose to show how we can split this code out of main bundle. And of course, now we don't need to fetch. And in initial state, we just want to return first 100 of array we have loaded. Unfortunately, we are using Webpack 1, and Webpack 1, when you are loading JSON on the client side, requires JSON loader. Webpack 2 doesn't require it, so we have to make our configuration a little bit more complicated. We want to add models section, and we want to add JSON loader. Nice. Now we restart it. We're going to our browser. We're gonna go to places. Nothing will happen, but our network will show pretty decent size bundle. Luckily, React Router, and again, it is connected to React Router. That's why this talk is combined both two. If you remember my route definition or our route definition, we will see that we are using a component property to define what component should be loaded when route is hit. Instead of using this property, we can use one of the asynchronous method React Router gives you to load a component or to get a hold of component. So in our, let me close this. Let me open. This so that we can see what is going on with bundle. So right now our bundle is about 8 megabytes. So instead of doing component here, we can say, you know what? Let's do a get component method. And get component method will be will accept us defining a function with a callback. And in this function, we can use require ensure to point of what component we are requiring. The syntax of this is very weird. And if I turn around or if I stop using my fake typing, I will never be able to reproduce it myself. I was honestly trying. But you know what? Cut and paste is your friend in this case. As long as you know what you are doing, and that's what we all know. So, if we save it, actually nothing will happen, right? Because we are requiring component places here, but we still requiring it here. And because we are requiring it here, it is bundled into the main bundle as one of the dependencies. So let's remove it. Now, it shouldn't be bundled. If we did everything right, it should be bundled anymore. And look at this beauty. What we have now is our main bundle is still big, right? But we will fight it. And all the code related to the places is now in its own chunk bundle. Cool. So now we go to our, and no, we don't want to go to places, right? So we go to home and we only fetching relatively small bundle. We go to places, it's automatically fetches our big bundle. Problem solved. But okay, we will jump into another problem and another problem and another problem as long as we can. And I can go for a couple of hours, but I don't think you wanna spend a night here listening to me bumbling. So next problem. Right now, as you see, we have a main bundle.js, 1.1, something.js. Now, what if we want to put it into CDN? What if we want to release it every day and do not call every customer by phone and say, hey, customer, clean your browser cache? We probably want to do something about it, right? So what we do about it is also very straightforward. In our webpack config, we can just say, hey, be chunk hash part of the name. Chunk hash, right? So as soon as we do it and we rebuild our application, let's do it back for a couple of times. We will see that bundles that are created now do have a hashes. So every time, if we go to Live Planner and if we change color to green, and if we run pack, and if we compare the caches, they're different on the main bundle. If we change something in places code, both hashes will be different because main bundle is pointing to the chunk bundle. So we now have these files generated, but if we go back to our page, it is still serving not hashed bundle. So what do we do about it? Again, multiple recipes, multiple ways of doing it. For purpose of this presentation, we can use assets plugin. And of course, we need to install it. And what this asset plugin will do after we add it to plugin session, and we have to create a plugin session, and we will say that, hey, Webpack, during your build, put all the resources you are producing into manifest file, into asset.json. So let's look at it. But if we look at our dist folder, we will see that there is assets generated. And this asset file is in JSON format, and it has a current state of our main bundle. And it doesn't care about the chunk, because chunk is referenced inside of main bundle. So now our job is easier. What we need to do is we need to go to index and import it, because we like our imports. So let's go and import it somewhere here. And as we have it imported, we pass it into our render full page. And that is why we didn't render full page as a plain HTML under static route, because we want to be flexible how this HTML is rendered. So everything has its purpose. Right? Now we go to page, we make sure that assets is accepted as a parameter, and voila, we just render. And because we are using ES6 template, we can do it this way. Assets, what was it? Main.js, right? So we do we go to our we are serving fingerprinted JavaScript file. Everybody is happy. Next time, next day, we are releasing new version, fingerprinted differently. Nobody has his cache in bad situation. So clean cache, nice. Next problem. We are releasing, so if you go to our bundle, we will see that it is still pretty decent size. And the reason why it is pretty decent size is because all the React code, all the React router code, everything is in this bundle. And imagine we are doing continuous deployment, so we are deploying code every day, and we are still using React 1.4, what is it, 15.3.1, and React Router 3. And every time when we are releasing our code, customer has to download new version of React, new version of everything. So let's try to split them. Let's try to serve our vendor as a different bundle. There are at least 3 ways I know how to do it. And the best way is to use Webpack DLL plugin. And when I first time came across Webpack DLL plugin, I was shocked because I was thinking it is something about Windows. And I'm like, it cannot be good because it is DLL. But it turns out to be a pretty useful thing, and it has nothing to do with Windows. So, so let's see how we can do it. The beauty of using this DLL plugin is that you are packing and bundling your vendor bundle totally separated from your bundling of your application. So we will even create a separate Webpack config. So we call it vendor instead of application. Can I go on for another? Are we okay? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I'm here all night. So separate config file. And we already know how to use assets plugin, and we will need assets plugin because we want our vendor bundle to be fingerprinting also. We just want to manifest to sit in different file. But what we want to do here is we want to define our entry as a vendor, or you can define it any way you want, and list everything what you want to go into this bundle. In our case, we want to go React, React DOM, and React Router to go to this bundle. And you can create multiple bundles, because if, God forbid, you are using jQuery on your page, you can create a separate bundle for jQuery. And in our output, we want to define output parameters. And that is quite important library, and I'll show you why it is important. But for now, we will just use DLL plugin. And we will say that this DLL plugin has to create us a bundle and put a manifest. And this manifest is a little bit different than this manifest. This is internal manifest, how our application bundle will know how to reference functions. Okay, we are done.
Why don't I plug this mic in?
Okay, I can continue if everybody can hear me. Oh, okay. I'll try to do my best. I'm not loudspeaker. Hello, 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 hello. Okay. So let's to run it.
Pull that up. Maybe you can put a different battery in it.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, to run a separate bundle for vendor, we want to add another command, pack vendor, which is nothing else other than webpack. And by the way, as long as we are building a vendor bundle, we might optimize it. We don't want a development piece there, because it is very rarely when you will need to debug vendor code. And to optimize a lot of it, we want to go back to our config, and we want to add some uglify business. So we define that we are building for production, and we say uglify our code and minimize it and compress it. And we want to even say, what was that nice property? Ignore I8 nonsense, but let's don't do it here. The reason why I put it into the separate config file, because I don't want a DLL plugin do anything with my application bundle. I want this to be a separate state in my build process. So I don't want to mix those configs together. It might be a case even when you are doing one vendor bundle and you distribute to your teams to use as pre-bundled package. So you don't want it to be a part. You bundle it and you change it or rebuild it only when it changes. So let's see what's happened here. So npm run pack vendor. So we got ourselves, and remember, size of our bundle was about megabyte. Now, because we are building vendor separately and we are using all these sort of optimizations, we are getting relatively small, 200 kilobytes vendor bundle. And we can shrink it even more. We just don't want to do it today, because as much as you make it smaller, as longer it takes to build it. That's logical. So we have our vendor bundle, but how do we make our application aware about this bundle? 2 steps. First one, in our application webpack config, we need to reference this bundle. And guess what? It is called DLL reference plugin. One more scary name. And what we are saying that reference vendor bundle using this vendor manifest. And vendor manifest was, as you remember, generated by previous run. So, npm run back. Our main bundle, it's end up being 13 key. Why? Because only our code is in it. And remember, we are running it without any optimization. So if we uglify as worth of it, we will get about 2 key or 3 key. But very last step in all this story is we have to serve a vendor bundle to the client because we just generated it. And it is also very straightforward. We will do it exactly the same way as we did assets. So we do import vendor assets and we grab it. We pass it here. Now we go to the page. We wanna load it. I forgot, it should be loaded before. Yes, vendor assets. And we want a vendor assets here. Vendor assets here. npm run build. Oh, sorry, npm run start. Live planner. Where did I screw up? Let's see. Oh. So we serve vendor bundle, and we serve our bundle. When our bundle is rebuilt, vendor bundle stays the same fingerprinting. So client, instead of loading every time 1 meg, client has to load 13 key. And development life is much more easy because our bundle is small. When we change the code, Webpack is pretty fast bundling it. Very last thing I want to show you, and after that I'm done. And it is about React Helmet. Anybody here knows what React Helmet is here? React Helmet, no? It's a very interesting package written by NFL development team. Imagine or not, NFL has a React developers. And what it is for letting component, any of your component, to control content of your header of your HTML. And it is quite ironic because it is a head. So because they are NFL, they call it helmet to cover a head. So let's see how it can work. What we might want to do is, actually we don't even have to load it as a helmet, but let's go to books because I promise you it's going to be more fun than just Wikipedia article about Russian literature. So we import helmet. And in our component, we say that when component is loaded, I want a certain JavaScript to be added to the head block of my HTML. And you can control a title. You can control, oh, sorry, I didn't put it in the right place because we broke a golden rule of React. Should be only one component returned. So remember, when component is loaded, it is loading JavaScript. You guys probably cannot hear it. And here is our script. Okay, enough fun. So if you look at this repository I created for this talk, and again, repository is here, I have a couple of more interesting things there because it is very easy. And if we would have another 20 minutes, we can do it, but we won't. It is very easy to hook up server-side rendering. It is very straightforward because, again, we have our render code returning as a string. We can re-render on the server, get a string, pass it to render page function, push it to the client. There is also an interesting subject about source maps, because right now everything what we did doesn't have a source map, so debugging is a little bit questionable. And I made a bet with a colleague of my very smart person, and he managed to make ES6 code show up in the browser console in debugging. So because I lost a bet, I can show it when I have time next time or whatever. But it's pretty cool. And here is a little Kanban board we can do about future talks. Some of those talks I can do, some of those talks I am anxious to hear from somebody else, but that's a good list. It has a React hot loading, I18N, React 4, Webpack 2, widget libraries, ES6, ES7, authentication in React, isomorphic, consuming data from GraphQL in isomorphic, and a bunch of stuff about Redux. And thanks for listening.